Now I'm thrilled to be joined by former Trump senior advisor Christian Whitten. Christian, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining me again. And I want to start out with some of the shocking scenes we have been seeing coming out of Portland, Oregon. We dealt a bit with this on the program last week, and it just keeps going off with the National Guard trying to deal with Antifa and radical left anarchists. Now, the president has posted on Truth Social saying, "We will never allow mobs to take over our streets, burn our cities, or destroy America." The National Guard is now in place and has been dedicated to restoring law and order, ending the chaos, death, and destruction. Christian, tell us about what has been going on in Portland, and is this going to be another one of these testing grounds for using military force to take down some of these organizations, loosely or more formally organized, that seem to have really, well, there's no other word but insurrection on their mind?
Yeah, Portland used to be a nice town. It's always just been a little bit gritty, but really in the late 90s, following the example of New York City with something similar to broken windows policing, you saw the murder rate decline. And throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, the murder rate was in the 20s, maybe 30 per year, and then it skyrocketed and it stayed high. It's off of its all-time high around the pandemic, the Summer of Love, where it exceeded 100, but it's been in the 70s. And you see the result of progressive rule. The place is full of bums, boarded up shops, crime. It's actually done the impossible and make downtown Seattle and downtown San Francisco look nice by comparison. And I think what you're seeing is that Donald Trump, the Trump administration, saw what happened in Washington, and the white liberals, the hippie boomer liberals who aren't affected by crime as much, were the ones protesting, and the people who are often minorities, poorer people, were actually welcoming of the National Guard. And there's an expectation that this is going to happen in Portland too, that the people who affected most by crime are going to welcome the National Guard.
Well, yeah, and we've seen these sort of flags and different protests and so on the screen here while you've been speaking, and it's all the different omni-cause sort of issues, but their big issue, of course, seems to be immigration and ICE facilities, and they've been protesting there for, I think, more than 100 days. This can't be allowed to continue, can it?
No, we fought a war over this issue of whether states could defy federal authority and whether states could sort of just decide that things that are approved by Congress and by the president, namely our immigration laws, are just suddenly optional and they can have carve-arounds. For example, benefits are intended for U.S. citizens or people who have been here lawfully for a long time and are on a path to citizenship, and yet we have the Democrats shutting down the government in order to maintain free health care for illegals, things like that. At any rate, with Portland, yeah, the question is, are we going to enforce federal laws? That's what ICE does. That's what CBP does. And the fact that they are being obstructed by locals, encouraged by local politicians, is really no different than Southern defiance of federal authority in advance of the Civil War. And that issue was settled.
Well, exactly right. And I think there's also a parallel, I think, with the Civil Rights Act and what's happening now with Antifa, and that all has to be dealt with. But this radical left here, Christian, it has been so unhinged, and there's been so much weirdness from them. I was absolutely struck by Randi Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, so in charge of educating everybody's kids. Randi had this to say on MSNBC.
There is a reason why in Norway, when the Nazis took over Norway, that's why I'm wearing this paperclip. I wear two things now: the American flag, nobody can take patriotism away from me, and a paperclip. What did the teachers in Norway do when there was the Nazi occupation? They started wearing paperclips.
So, Christian, this is part of this narrative here, and she's promoting a book called Why Fascists Fear Teachers. But this is part of this narrative here that, the right are a bunch of fascists, they're a bunch of Nazis, and it seems to me this is really normalizing potential violence because, of course, if the right are fascists and Nazis, well, what are you allowed to do in order to fight it? It seems shocking to me that somebody in charge of kids would be saying this.
Yeah, this really just a truly revolting person, and not just because of this, where she's actually engaging in projection. It's where someone doing something actually accuses someone else of doing it.
Yeah.
She is the one that's trying to stifle free speech by dehumanizing her opponent. She's the one refusing to engage in legitimate debate. If anyone's a fascist, it's she and her progressive friends. And it's just, again, this person is supposed to be in charge of education, and what does this have to do with public school education other than convincing people we need to keep a closer eye on what's going on in public schools and with these government unions? So really beyond the pale what she is doing. And also, I don't think it's going to work. I think she's actually something that can help get Republicans elected, because it's clear that the progressives haven't learned a whole lot.
Yeah, no, it's just shocking. And also, I would say, and add a shocking insult, I think, to victims of the Holocaust to compare this administration to Nazis. But anyway, let's keep talking here about what's happening on the left here. We've seen more fallout from the Jimmy Kimmel very brief suspension. There was exchange between Kimmel and another late-night host, Stephen Colbert, talking about Trump. Have a look at this.
Did you ever think the president of the United States would be celebrating your unemployment?
I mean, that son of a is really unbelievable.
Mr. Son of a
Mr.
Son of a
His royal. Yes. Yeah, no, I never imagined that we'd ever have a president like this. And I hope we don't ever have another president like this again. I never even imagined there would ever be a situation in which the president of our country was celebrating hundreds of Americans losing their jobs. There's somebody who took pleasure in that. That, to me, is the absolute opposite of what a leader of this country is supposed to be.
Christian, I thought the left celebrated when people they didn't like lost their jobs. What do you make of that?
Well, again, here's someone who has learned nothing from what's happened and from the political developments in this country, where the people have spoken clearly, and also two people who have really done a great job corrupting their profession, comedy, which is an important profession, actually, and of ruining what was a very simple cash cow, which was late-night television, which used to be soft humor and an occasional political jab delivered on both sides of the political aisle. I don't think Johnny Carson did much politics at all. Jay Leno and even David Letterman, who's a bona fide pinko now, when he helmed late night, wasn't that much into politics. And these two chased short-term games, going political in the Obama years and then in the early Trump years, actually got him a brief ratings bump and beat the competition. But if you look more broadly at late night as a whole, it's dead. It's gone away. People don't watch this. It's not actually funny. It's not humorous. It's not clever. Satire requires, you can't actually hate the people you satirize. I mean, no one thinks that Dana Carvey loved or voted for George H.W. Bush when he parodied him. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But he parodied him so well because, I don't think you can hate the people you parody. These people clearly hate Republicans, and it's accelerating the demise of the incumbent networks in the U.S.
It's terrible for the culture, and I'll just point out, Dana Carvey did do that great George Bush, but no one ever did Joe Biden, and he was pretty lampoonable as well. Thanks so much, Christian Whitten. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me on the U.S. Report.